Hi, everybody. So obviously, you know what this piece is. And so you had a question about when I think about how I choose a sound, how do you bring life to something that you practice a lot and then how do you make it live? How do you make it sing, literally? So I'm going to take you through what I think about and what I focus on. First of all, I think you all respond to patterns. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a less good way. For example, if someone in your household says, go clean up your desk, and they say, go clean up your desk, go clean up your desk, go clean up your desk. How do you respond the first time? How do you respond the second time or the fourth time? Now, yeah, I know. Now, how about if someone says, what you just did was fantastic. 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 How do you respond the first time, second, third, and fourth times? Obviously, one brings more pleasure than the other. So I think enjoying hearing something is fabulous. So even if it's difficult and you have to actually play evenly on 3 strings. But if you go after a certain point, the repetition can become insistent or boring or exciting or more important. You have to decide what it means. So if you hear this twice, not quite twice because it changes, and then oh, this is a whole measure of completely different things. It's not repeated twice. And then twice. Again, a complete measure that's not repeated. Twice. Two measures of things that are not repeated at all. Similar but not quite. Twice. Twice. One measure that's different. Twice. One measure that's not repeated. Twice. That measure stops. There's nothing like that in the whole movement. So, for me, storytelling is all about psychology. How you choose to talk about and put it in narrative form for what you perceive. So the score is your script, and you look at the script, but you have to turn it into drama. So what I try to do is you look at what, in a way, the patterns, the changing patterns, things that are repeated, things that are not repeated, things that are unique. And then you put it together. It's like a mystery story. You have to figure out, these are the clues. Why does it stop? And then you start getting scales. I always go to the beginning and the end. So you start, what's the end like? It's the same, and yet he reverses, not. So the fact that he reverses that and it goes higher says to me, this is one energy level. This is another energy level, and it's reversed. And so the highest note is right there. So that's a clue. So now we have two clues. We have the beginning and the end, and we have one measure that just kind of stops, and after which everything changes, scales. A pattern that gets smaller and smaller and accelerates and it goes up. So this is like a steam engine. You're building up steam to that thing. And all of that build-up happens after you stop. So it's up to you to figure out what happened in that moment of silence and what changed. You can put in any story you want, but it's got to fit beginning patterns, end pattern, higher energy, reversed, and something happened that creates this change. Let's describe something that we all know, like what we just went through. So I can't possibly be thinking about this last year or 2 years ago. But let's think about last March when everything stopped. And we went through hell. And we're rebuilding, hopefully better. And if you think about that, you now have a scenario For the first time, I'm thinking that. And when something is different, you pay attention. When something's repeated, don't overemphasize it. So the second time something comes in, don't overemphasize it. So, and by the way, just before it stops, you have your lowest note. That's another clue. Highest note, at the very end, the lowest note just before the break. Right? And then look for the accidentals. Why this accidental? Something is triggering it. So think of that as the yeast. Something that's making something rise. It's baking soda. And think of cascading notes, something that's swirling, something is activating, something's going on. So now you have, so this is like, it could be an Agatha Christie mystery. This could be a chemistry experiment. This could be the world. It's up to you, according to what you know, how to think of it. For me, I think rebuilding better is not so bad. It's a pretty good one. And for something that, some calamitous event, you go along and then suddenly you're driving your car. Someone rear ends you. Everything that you planned for that day is gone. Do you have your wallet? Do you have your license? Do you have car insurance? Are you going to tell your parents? Boom. So imagination is personal. Every one of you has a different imagination. If you use your imagination, you can match any scenario in music with a scenario that you've experienced. Now, one way to do it, that I like to do that, is that I actually like to think that everything that I hear in music has its counterpart in some kind of motion in nature. Nature meaning as in using gravity. You throw something up in the air and it kind of slows down as the gravity starts to affect on it. And then like a parabola, it falls down. Up, down. You throw it up, it goes at a certain speed, and when it comes down, it comes at another speed. Now, that's one kind of motion. I like to think of this. I love streams, brooks. I love watching water going through, hitting a stone, there's a boulder, there are pebbles, and you see the light play on a brook. It's something that's regular. It's something that's ever-changing. It never repeats itself. That's a good way to think about the joy part. Oh, I love the way you did that. You're enjoying seeing that. You're seeing something in nature that is both the same and different day after day, year after year. So nature, as someone said, has the greatest imagination. Maybe you're next. But if you go to nature, you can't go wrong. But nature guards her secrets jealously. So you have to actually extract that imagination from nature. Watch it, observe it, code it, memorize it, and then sort of replicate it. The motion of something up in the air or falling, the motion of water, the motion of a leaf slowly wafting down, the motion of birds, a flock of birds that can suddenly turn, you know? So if you can, everything that you play in music has a counterpart. Find it for yourself using your imagination and thinking about the energy it takes for something to suddenly take off. What does it take to do that? What does it take for a gesture to come into being? So, for example, you've got three energy states at the same time. One of your questions was, how do you deal with a sound of Beethoven? Well, we started with the sound of Bach, and part of talking about water is that water starts from somewhere. It's nice to join water. Maybe it started before the piece began, so that you're actually joining the stream. You're just stepping into the flow. That's a visualization that involves your memory of water, the memory of joining a stream, of the flow of something that's already energized. So you're not creating the energy, you're joining something that has energy in itself. That's not a bad way to think about things. But from loud to soft in a very short time. So if you know what the sound of the piano, that's a cascade of something. If you use that energy to start, you're already halfway there to figuring out the sound, because you're already joining something that actually says this should be the sound, that you're rising, you're taking that energy, and then maybe it's the plume of the water that's splashing, and then you see just that splash coming out, and then it becomes a little steadier. So the sound comes from how you put it in context into physical space. So that's one thing. Now let's talk about seeking careers in music. I just spilled a whole glass of iced coffee. So just for you to know, that's what happened, but I will fix it in 2 minutes. So career choices. Now, there are two things about what you do in life. First of all, and from what I understand, many of you will have, by the time you're 60, 70, you will have done 4 or 5 different things. That's different from people of my generation who sometimes stick to one thing. So that's what I read statistically. It may be different for you. Now, I've always thought, and this may not apply to you, but I'll share with you what I think. I've always thought, when I was young, when I was your age, that if I am to become a musician, I have to figure out what I have to offer and what does the world need that I can offer. And I have to invent that reason, because unlike firemen A community doesn't necessarily have to have another musician. So if you're going to be a musician, you have to find the reason why you need to exist. Now, it could be as simple as, I love it so much that's all I can do. That's okay if you say, yeah, but somebody else has to agree with you, right? Because that's when you are serving that other person. Because otherwise, you can just be a musician for yourself. But that doesn't make you a living. So those are the kinds of questions that I went through as a younger person. I still actually go through those same questions because every stage in life, I feel like I have to find the reason why I do music. Because music, unlike, again, certain jobs that are necessary, you have to be totally in it for it to feel meaningful and purposeful. Otherwise, there's no meaning. The meaning you get from the meaning you put into it. Does that make sense? I think you can always check out how effective you are as a musician by playing for your friends, playing for people, and just seeing what their reaction is. Because in some ways, when you perform, it's the person that you're playing for that's the most important person in the room, and it's not you. Because unless you're there to show off, if you're there to share something that's important, they have to get it, and it has to live in them for it to be meaningful and purposeful. So I like to, in my life, try to say, who needs it and why? The way that I think of a composer to say, why did Bach write the Prelude of the First Suite, and why did Beethoven write, the D major sonata? What was in him that needed him to do this? I think the same reasons apply to when you play for somebody. That person is the most important person in the room, because if you have a gift to give to a friend, you're not giving the gift and showing how important you are. You're actually trying to say to your friend, this is how important you are. That's why I chose that gift for you. If for any reason your friend thinks that you're giving this gift to him or her because you're important, you're more important, that gift is not going to have the same value to them. So music is a form of gift giving. What are you offering? What are you giving? How are you offering it? What pleasure are you getting from offering it? You can't say, this is a gift. I've been tasked to give it to you. I'm delivering this. This is it. That would be a horrible gift. So that's my advice on careers, is that you find the people that actually need it and appreciate it, and you have proof of it. And they say, this is meaningful. And you start that with friends, people in the community, people, not just people in your music school. But at UConn, go a little further than the next person. Go to a veterans center, go to a hospital, go to a school, go to a grocery store. Figure out who needs it. And start from there. And then when you apply for jobs, you can say, look, this is what I know how to do. I play the instrument. A lot of people play the instrument. But I actually know these things about people. Because that's what it's for, ultimately. And the more you know people, and the more you care about people, the more you can actually get your mind and your imagination into someone else's mind and make them the most important person, as in a composer. But when you're performing, it's no longer the performer, the composer that's the most important. It's the person you're playing for. It's the person you're giving the gift of that composer to. So, in fact, people often say a performer is a vessel. And by that, they mean it's like you are, things pass through you, and you actually facilitate and make possible the passing through to somebody else. That means your technique, your emotions, your ego have all need to be in the right place, right structure for things to effortlessly pass through. Because nobody wants to listen to a performer and say, oh, gee, that performer is playing something very difficult, and that's very impressive. No, it's more like that performer has just moved me, has made me pay attention to something I've never paid attention to before, and that affected me. That's what you're going for. I hope that's helpful, but I know you have a wonderful class, and I know you have a wonderful teacher, and I'm sure these are questions and a lot of those questions are worries. How am I going to make a living outside of school? Those are very legitimate questions. I think partly a way of solving those questions is by addressing some of the things that we talk about, because that's good for lifelong. Whether you are having a career in music or you do something else and you love music, the first thing is you never give up your love of music, because that's your friend through life. If you happen to be able to make a living at it, make sure you never get cynical. It's really easy to have an ideal of music and then say, the world is horrible. Make sure that you never lose that first love of music, because that's your friend for life. That's your advantage. That's your secret superpower. Okay? Lots of luck. Thank you.